Bigger than capes.
Give me some outside.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it, and then I watched it.
Right.
Hello, welcome to Bigger Than Capes. I am Zach, and this week I'm joined by Will. Will, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Can barely speak apparently, but that's
living that lockdown dream.
Oh yeah. I feel like we could pre-record our response to "Hey, how are you doing?" and just
it's the same every time. But I'm generally doing all right, mate. Not too bad.
Good. So here we are. And this week, midweek, whenever this is going to go out, we're here to talk about Redfork from TKO, from their most recent releases. They released 3 books back in the past 2020.
Oh yeah.
End thereof, I guess.
Who knows with the last year? Could have been the beginning or the end. It's all just one splurge.
The year I don't understand. So yeah, November of last year is my interpretation of when the last wave of
that sounds about right.
TKO releases was. Redfork is Alex Paknadel, Nil Vendrell, Giulia, Brusco, and Ryan Ferrier as your creative team. That's writer, artist, colour artist, and letterer in order of listing. And Will, would you like to hit us with the official blurb of?
Yeah, I will. I'm going to just piggyback this straight from TKO themselves, because who could say it better? So Redfork is about ex-con Noah returns to find his hometown of Redfork, the name of the book, decayed by opioid abuse. But soon he discovers a more sinister and dangerous supernatural presence lurking in the coal mines below town.
Which, if you put it in the kind of rhythm with some guitar behind it, does sound like a Paul McCartney Beatles track. Kind of a Rocky Raccoon kind of.
Yeah, all about ex-con Noah.
I reckon we could write that song. Not like we've got anything else on.
No, literally nothing else on. Yeah, we'll do that after.
So, yeah, you know what? I think you've summed it up quite well there. Will via TKO Studios.
Give the plaudits to TKO. But yeah, I think it does. I think that does the book a service. Like it's a fairly straightforward kind of setup to the plot. We start by seeing Noah essentially going down for his brother's crime.
Yes.
Going to prison for the sake of his brother for murdering a dentist. Is a dentist, isn't it?
He is a dentist.
They're trying to rob drugs from.
Old Doc Brewster.
Old Doc Brewster. And is it 8 years later? I think he returns to Redfork after serving his sentence. And
either 8 or 6 years, which I didn't realise was how long you got for manslaughter.
No.
I mean, I'm not that well up on it, to be fair, but
must have been very well behaved.
Well, it seems like all he did was push-ups and come back as three sizes bigger than he went in.
Yeah, comes out absolutely hench. But no, you're right. 6 years later it was. So Noah, 6 years later, returns to the town of Redfork
Yes, he does.
Serving time for his brother's crime.
Oh man, the rhymes for this song are just right there, aren't they?
They're just lining themselves up.
Yes, and basically, comes back jacked as hell, nothing but push-ups. Met by his friend D-Ray.
Yeah.
Real name Donald. To discover that the town is kind of falling apart. The main coal mine is on strike, which is kind of where everybody in the town works.
Yeah.
And they're obviously, bringing in some out-of-towners who don't know them hills to...
Yeah.
Which also includes Noah's brother, Cody, who is not from out of town and does know damn hills. But
he does know damn hills, but also he is the brother who Noah has spent time
yes. For. Yes, indeedy. Which is so not the right way to put that.
Yeah. We also find that Noah and Cody's dad is dying from the black lung.
Which we all know well about, which is what happens if you work in a coal mine for too long, I'm told.
That's it. He gets the black lung. His mum's a bit of a monster, right? Throughout.
It's weird because, yes, but you can kind of see glimpses of why, I think.
Yeah, I think it's one of those books that nobody is painted as a completely good or bad person, but most people definitely err on the side of bad.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've made a note of every named character that we get. And everyone that I think we get. So we've got 18 named characters in this book.
It's a lot of people.
Which is a heavy number. And it's kind of cool because I think by informing us and seeing so many characters interact, it does feel like a legitimate small town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, everybody knows each other. Everybody's in each other's pockets. That sort of.
Yeah, everyone's involved. Everyone's either taking drugs or dealing drugs or both. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because we do see. Yeah, I feel like no one's good or bad. Really, everyone's kind of. I mean, okay, Gallowglass is arguably bad.
Mm-hmm. Oh, but, for sure.
I think a lot of the actual townspeople we see as being quite neutral and flawed people. I only realized kind of at the end of the book that I do actually feel like D-Ray is one of the most well-rounded and defined characters, which is kind of weird.
Absolutely. And there's a bit that I think we'll come to later on that I think is probably D-Ray's biggest character moment. And as you say, is one of the best, I think, pieces of sort of just basic character defiance that we see in this book.
Yes, I very much agree. I guess I was just surprised by that revelation that he does seem the most well-rounded despite not being the most central of characters at times.
And also drug addict bum. His life is going nowhere, but yeah, he seems most at peace with just the world as it is. Yeah,
it's a strange one, and I'm kind of interested in how Alex Paknadel arrived at that as a character to be the most rounded character in here. Is D-Ray, who is not my main protagonist.
He reminded me, at least physically, but also the drug taking, of the character from Void Trip.
Oh, I can't remember his name.
Whose name I can't remember either, but
with
just the kind of bearded bandana, heavy drug user.
Oh, that's going to drive me mad that I can't remember what he's called. God damn it. Incidentally, though, that is another connection to the whole White Noise Collective. So maybe,
Maybe there is a little give and take of characters here and there.
Oh, is he Gabe? Is he Gabe?
Gabe, yes. Anyway,
so Gabe.
While the kind of brought in miners are down the shaft while the main miners are striking.
Yes.
There's an explosion in the mine and everybody gets buried.
Everybody gets buried.
I think it's at this point that one of my the standout bits of art start coming into play. Because
credit where it's due, Nil Vendrell, real good art.
Yeah. And I mean, it's good up to this point. Really good sort of facial expressions and good movement from panel to panel. Good sort of.
Yeah.
But I think when we get to the point where Cody is in the busted up mine shaft on his own.
Yeah. And you've got the silhouettes of.
All the silhouette stuff. The coloring's really great. There is no borders at this point where we've had proper paneling up till this stage.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It gives like just that sense of being lost in the dark. Like every direction is just blackness, so there's no order to it. That goes on to the kind of next page where he's starting to claw out, and he's just following like a beam of light. There's just a direction to follow, and he's just sort of dragging himself towards it. Yeah, and I think those 2 pages, in fact, a third page when he meets an unusual miner down said shaft. I just think they're a great set of pages, and it happens a couple of times throughout this book, but it's a highlight of the art.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's really nice, and it does very much capture the lost in the dark kind of feel. And I think it makes the lack of panels, borders, feel very atmospheric and very well linked together by darkness.
And then once we're outside again, back to sort of full paneling.
Yeah.
But importantly, Cody meets what looks like a sort of Civil War era miner.
Yes.
Down the shaft, who says that he can lead Cody out, but all he needs him to do is to break his chain. This sort of oldie worldy miner is just chained mysteriously to the wall.
Just to the rocks, yeah. Just chained on in there.
And I mean, it's fair to say at this point, Cody's kind of delirious, and is quite willing to break this man's chains to get some freedom.
I mean, I hear that is what happens when a mountain falls on you.
Yeah, damn right. But as he leaves, the chain turns to a just sort of gross intestine.
Yeah, creepy, innit?
Growing out the wall. We see a trail of blood leading off.
All right, despite having read the blurb for this book, I still didn't expect the kind of, I don't know, ancient evil body horror type vibes that we actually come on to.
No, I don't think the blurb. I guess, I don't know. I'm not sure. But this is where we get introduced to Gallowglass. This sort of old miner, and I think to sort of jump forward a little bit, he starts kind of healing people in the town with this mysterious coal that they called snow coal. It's kind of white glowing hunk of coal that when you burn it, it seems to cure people of their ailments.
Yes.
On the other hand, it then also turns you into a horror beast.
Which often is the trade-off, you know. Yeah. It's
asthma, get rid of that, but you will be a kind of goblin monster afterwards.
A terrifying hulk of flesh.
Yeah. As your sort of original flesh just sloughs from your bones and is replaced by a little scaly hide.
It's some real good old fashioned body horror nightmare feels, I think.
Yeah. Now, this is all for the purpose of unearthing something at the bottom of the mine.
Yeah, some kind of mysterious ancient elder god type thing. Who the hell knows?
I think herein lies probably my biggest issue with the book as a whole, is that it is a full story in its trade, so it begins and ends completely. I don't really ever feel we get enough about what that is and what it wants beyond freedom.
Yes,
I know that's kind of part of the sort of Cthulhu style
horror narrative,
horror mythos, is that they are like unknowable. Their desires are above and beyond those of kind of mortal men, and maybe it doesn't matter, but it makes it difficult for me to sort of feel the weight of the horror if I don't understand what it is. Like, it wants freedom, but then what?
Yeah, I agree. And I think one of probably my only complaint about this would be that whilst I get that the TKO format is kind of 6 issues, which is then one trade, I feel like this is 8-issue book that happens in 6 issues.
Perhaps, yeah.
And I feel like if we'd been given a little bit more information, a little bit more time to kind of tell more about Gallowglass, more about what is under the mountain, more about the actual town, because there, like as I've said, there are some great moments of character work and showing how everybody knows each other and how everything is integrated. I think giving that a little bit more breathing space would have probably explained how Gallowglass heals everyone and everyone ends up working for him, trying to unearth said ancient evil.
Like, what is Snow Coal? Like, what it doesn't. We never really get much more about it. Having said that, like, I actually found the arc of the narrative quite satisfying in terms of where our main characters end up and where. I kind of don't want to give too much away for people to read, but I did find it a quite satisfying ending in terms of where the characters end up.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, without giving too much away, I think it does end where I'm happy with where it ended. I think it's a good resolution to the overall narrative. I think it does resolve itself nicely. I just think that there could have been a little bit more afforded in the journey to get us there. That's right. Yeah, that's who I am now. That's the kind of thing I say. But with that said, I think we do get a very interesting grasp and investigation into all the characters and their motivations. We see that Cody is just ultimately quite a good guy. He's trying to be, isn't he? So he's kind of like guilty for letting his brother go to prison for him, and has sort of supported Noah's sort of ex-girlfriend and his daughter as best he could. Unity and Harper, thank you.
Don't know how I forgot a name like Unity, to be honest.
It's a strong name, isn't it? You have to be real confident to name your kid Unity, I think.
Just a quick sidebar there to just refer to the art again. The conversation they have on a full page where they circle the sinkhole
is something I've actually made a note about as being like just good paneling.
It's just good stuff in it. Like how to do a 9-panel grid in a new way is just do it in a circle around a sinkhole. Obviously,
it seems obvious when you say it, Will, but there's also just after that when kind of Unity and Noah are talking in the house. I've got both a complaint and a thing that's good. And I think the movement in that, where you kind of see Noah looking around the living room and kitchen and whatnot, is really nice and smoothly done. However, I do have the complaint that they do spell Ventolin wrong.
Is that? Do you think that is a typo, or is that to avoid any?
I don't know, man.
Right.
Is Ventolin is Ventolin a brand name, or is Ventolin a?
I couldn't tell you, man. It's not something I've had too much experience with.
You know what? There's also always the chance that it's spelled differently in different places, but I don't know. I think I need to stop. This is a message that I need to stop working for the NHS. I think that's what this is.
So that'll just pull you out of the story. That's not how you spend Ventolin.
Oh man. But okay, lettering, spelling aside, I think art-wise, the whole flow around when they're talking around the sinkhole, the conversation inside the house, and the movement is all very natural and just really good, because considering it's not, I feel like we see a lot of conversations in comics that are very face-to-face, we're talking, and I think putting the movement in it makes it feel a lot more natural and human, which is
and I think you're right. I think there's been a conscious effort towards that. So if Noah walks to one side of the room, he turns a different way to face Unity when he talks to her. And I think it feels like there's been thought put into that, like they've imagined what this room looks like, and then rather than just go like, oh, there's a window there. And I don't know if you've read any of the Darth Vader comics that Marvel, the early ones that Marvel put out.
I've dabbled, yeah.
I quite enjoy them broadly, but I always find the art in that, like as my example of quite stilted and where nothing seemed to belong in the room or move around the room, right?
Yeah, and I think there's also obviously there's challenges with Darth Vader of conveying emotion,
not really having a face. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is maybe that's a statement about the Galactic Empire more than anything.
They're just not groovy. They're
just not very personalized in their whole view of room decor or
no. As you mentioned earlier, we get introduced to Harper as well. So Noah's, I guess, six-year-old daughter. I guess, right?
Yeah.
He's not quite born when he goes to prison. And
the maths would suggest she must either be 5 or 6. Yeah,
or 6. It's odd because she doesn't. I mean, the way she's been drawn, she could be 5 or she could be 13. And not like kids in comics.
Yeah, kids in comics is a kind of huge variable, isn't it? Between ages can be whatever we're told they are, but 5 or 6 is our guess based on what we've been shown. If she's older than that, something's wrong.
Yeah. There seems to be a lot made of her having the inhaler. Now, like, this might be something about coal mines that I don't understand, and perhaps it is the coal dust becomes airborne and affects people, but it appeared to be suggesting on the surface that asthma is like, or black lung is like hereditary.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was the vibe we were meant to, I assume that is the vibe we were meant to get, that, you know, obviously Noah's father is dying from exposure to coal dust. And I guess it's that concern for his daughter that it's maybe not so much hereditary, but something that is affecting everybody that is here.
That's it. It could be my ignorance about coal mining, to be fair, but it didn't explain too much. I mean, the asthma becomes important later when Gallo Glass is out of the mine and he's healing people in the town. It's an obvious draw then for Noah.
Yeah.
To heal his daughter. So I guess it's important to establish that, but they just seem to make quite a big deal out of it for, like, lots of people have asthma and are fine. They have the right medicines and live good
and everything's okay, and they don't have to make deals with a supernatural entity.
Quite. I don't know. It just felt like it was a big deal for.
Yeah, it's quite a heavy sell on the asthma. I'll give you that. And it did seem like it came a little bit from out of nowhere, but I think that might just be our lack of knowledge about coal mining towns.
I guess that's part of it. That's the balance for me, is that the pacing of the book, the building of the characters, the kind of the flashbacks and the really well scripted conversations that tell you things about the characters are great throughout. But I'm just disappointed there just isn't enough detail for me. Like, Gallo Glass produces this black blood that he calls tar.
Yeah.
And all of the people who have been treated with the white coal are just obsessed with eating this tar. And he sort of uses it as a treat for doing good mining. But like, what's that all about?
I don't feel like I'm qualified to answer that question.
And it's just those bits. Like, I think it's a really well constructed book. I really enjoyed reading it. But at the end, I felt a little disappointed that the details weren't filled in, to the point I get kind of like audience interpretation and things. But there's a certain point where I think actually it's your job to sort of tell me the end of this story. And
I think it is stuff like the tar that I would have liked more detail about, and I think that's part of why I feel like we could have benefited from an extra issue or two to kind of
I can accept, like, if some things go kind of unfinished, but there just seems to be 3 or 4 different tendrils that don't quite tie up anywhere.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a few threads that aren't tied off as neatly as I would like. Many questions about Gallo Glass, or Gregor uses human name.
Yeah.
How does he settle on Gallo Glass? What's Gallo Glass? I need answers. Is that what happens if you're in a mountain for 100 years? You just decide, I'm going to be Gallo Glass.
It's a cool name. Like, if you've got a long time down there, you might think, What am I gonna call? What's my cool name gonna be?
Yeah, should I get out of this situation, I'm definitely going to want a rebrand. Gregor's not going to still be cool, is it?
Need a nom de crime. Also, when he uses the white coal, it seems to be that it saps life from other things, because every time he uses it, a bird or a squirrel or some creature dies in place of healing somebody. Which
is acknowledged, I think. It is acknowledged by characters that there are a lot of dead birds.
Yeah. But again, like, what is what is white coal? I just feel that I'm left just a little bit without the detail. Stuck in
I agree. That is a very valid question. What is white coal? What is the tar? But and I did. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I don't want it to all sound like too negative, because actually, like, there's tons about this book I think is brilliant. I think the characters are great, and I say the actual kind of pace and plotting is really great.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a good book, and I think art-wise, writing, it is very well put together. There's stuff like, so there's pages where we see D-Ray driving away from the prison back to the town, where the progression of the car through the panels is really good. It's something we see mirrored when we start an issue with Noah doing press-ups, and he kind of, when he goes down, he's in D-Ray's apartment with the dog watching him from the bed.
Yeah.
And then when he comes up, he's in prison. And the kind of pacing there, it's also the point where we find out that D-Ray's got an Insane Clown Posse poster after wearing an Insane Clown Posse t-shirt in his first appearance. And he also has a Metallica Saint Anger poster, which was so significant to me because it just made me think, is this how you define a character? Do you just go like, that music everybody, looks down on? That's D-Ray.
That's who he is.
He loved Saint Anger. He's into the Insane Clown Posse. He just is who he is,
And that's why he's the best.
Yeah, kinda. I quite liked Saint Anger. Don't know about you.
Yeah, not less so. But that's maybe for a different chat. Have we commented on the? We get them a few times, like the full page images of like the mine shafts.
We have not commented on that. We can do.
I think we get it on a couple of occasions. The first one when we see like the sort of origin of Gallo Glass, when the three brothers back in ye olde America descend in the mine. The eldest brother makes a deal with whatever it is down there, and sort of in return gives them his brother Gregor, who then later emerges as Gallo Glass.
Then we see it again when they're leaving the mine.
When they're escaping the mine, and they are awesome.
Yeah, it's this kind of, I don't know, cross-section of a mine, but it's a very cartoony depiction of a mine, I think.
Absolutely. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, you couldn't actually traverse it. But they look so cool. Like, I think they're a really good depiction of, particularly in the second time we see it, there are kind of 4 events going on.
Yeah, and I think the pacing of showing how everything's progressing through the mine is really nicely done.
Yeah, you can see where these like 4 groupings of characters are.
Yeah, and it works really nicely, and I think it's cool to see that the update, because it's essentially the same mine, but with progress being made between the two of how things have changed in 100 years. Mm-hmm. We also, at a similar time, we get some really good, similar time to the second showing of the mine, we get some great pages that are again all kind of shrouded in darkness, of showing what's happening with Gallo Glass and what's happening underground. And I think it's really well done as kind of creepy, and the reveal of kind of full-on supernatural Gallo Glass is a real creepy page, Will.
Yeah.
I think it's the end of issue 5. But I think the use of the darkness is good throughout, and I think every time we're underground, I think it feels. I think the feeling of this being, buried in the darkness is very strong and very well done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think dropping those panels really dark, like the coloring's really nice when it's underground. You just get little sort of flashes of color, but it's mostly sort of just silhouette and darkness. Real good. Real
good. Yeah, art, really, really good art. And it's a really good balance between the pretty heavy body horror moments and then the kind of everyday here we are at home moments. Mm-hmm. Admittedly, there aren't many here we are at home moments, and it's
no, but I think you're right. It's set in a lot of different settings. Like we see different parts of the town, we see the mine, we see the woods, and I think everyone is detailed to the point that it sells the environment. I've only really get it occasionally, but you sometimes get a comic where it just feels like the characters have been sort of pasted on top of an environment they just don't belong in.
Yeah, I think that happens sometimes.
Do you know what I mean? And I never got this from here. I mean, there's a bit inside. We haven't really talked about the family who own the mine.
The Paisleys?
Jane Paisleys, yeah. So we see a little bit inside Jane Paisley's big mansion house.
Yeah, we do.
But I think all the environments are really good. Like I say, there's just enough detail to sell the kind of vibe, and then you're in it.
I very much agree. I think all the locations are very, very nicely done and very detailed. I think that there's a tendency to go kind of lazy on backgrounds, and when there isn't a background in this book, it's because it's underground and it's shadow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, fair play.
There's the odd panel where it's shot over the shoulder and it's just a blue sky background, but they are
more often than not. There's a lot of effort and detail put into the locations.
Absolutely, they're few and far between.
I'm there for that.
Yeah. I think the colouring is excellent throughout as well. Actually, I think it's worth noting that.
Yeah, I think everything sets the tone nicely and fits whichever environment we're in. That's something actually that I thought was. So I think it's issue 5 starts with the priest in the church talking about how he nearly died and all he wanted was to play piano, and he can't because he's this kind of nightmarish monster now trying to play Ray Charles on on an old electric piano and real piano, never mind,
real piano.
Show off.
I think it was a good way of showing that it started to affect people outside of the lives of the main characters.
Yes, and I think it then led to the kind of procession of all the townspeople into the mountains to dig for something.
And I think it might not necessarily ring quite as true for you and I, but I think that a small town American town,
well said.
The priest like that would I imagine be central in the community. So you think if he has been touched by what's going on, then I guess it gives the idea that everybody has.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and obviously it's the nice contrast. Well, I say nice contrast. Nice isn't the right word. It's the contrast of the religious figure who even he has succumbed to the supernatural promises from under a mountain of being cured of what ails you to which I think again shows how far it has reached everything. I think you are right.
I've just found what I've been looking for a little while, which is D-Ray's crowning moment. So drug addict D-Ray, Noah asks him why wouldn't you go to Gallowglass to be cured?
Yeah.
And he just says, if I let Gallowglass just pluck out my pain like a dead tooth and I wouldn't learn nothing from all those years on the needle, eventually I'll just find a way to fuck up all over again, twice as bad. Sometimes it's our scars that hold us together, Noah.
It's real good, isn't it, Will?
It's real good. And it's why D-Ray is just the best guy in this. Like, I think most people are fairly irredeemable. Like, Noah's quite likable, and I think although he makes mistakes, you can always tell his heart's in the right place. Cody seems likable, but it isn't really a central character.
Which is interesting, because after the first few pages, I thought he was going to be central to the plot.
He's important, but he's not frequently on panel. I think that's...
Yeah, it feels like he's more of he's a catalyst for things that have happened, and he shows the relationship between characters pretty consistently. I think he's shown us a central piece of the family and how everyone interacts with each other.
Mm-hmm. But I think like Noah's mum and Unity, and Jane Paisley and all of her goon, they're just pretty irredeemable people. Like, there isn't...
Yeah, there's some real bad ones around. We also get, we get almost throwaway characters like Wade, who's, gets his face beat in with a pool ball by the looks of it. And
he does, poor Wade.
And there's a few characters like that who, just don't seem like good people. And I guess that's indicative of what's gone wrong with Redfork, Will.
Yeah, I think it is just flavour, isn't it? It's just to give you an idea that this town is miserable and is like on its knees. But then is faced with something, well, we assume far worse, but maybe the beast underground is just real misunderstood.
Just a good guy,
Mm-hmm. We just don't know.
Just wants to fix things.
If they made more of this, would you read it?
Yeah, I'd be up for some more of this. I'd be up for... I don't know particularly if I'd want a sequel, but I'd like something that kind of filled in some gaps, or perhaps even came beforehand to talk about like how the Paisley family got to where they are. And I imagine there's a story to be told about the three brothers, Gregor, Rupert, and Keith. Keith seems like an outlier amongst those three names, doesn't it? Was he actually called Keith, or have I just named him Keith?
I hope he's got Keith. I haven't written down the brothers.
I need to check. Yeah, Keith. Keith, who went deaf when an explosion hit him. Keith, Gregor, and Rupert, who are the three brothers who set out mining without a clue what they're doing back in the day.
Yeah, with one pick between them.
Yeah, I would be quite invested in seeing like a prequel story that focuses on them and the supernatural. And let's be honest, how Rupert goes insane about leaving his brother buried underground.
Yeah, I think it's been funny with these TKO books because some of them are written, and just sort of I can't see them going anywhere. Like Sarah was a complete story, and it ends in such a way that there's not going to be any more of that, and that's absolutely fine. This book ends in such a way that I get the same feeling. Like you get a little bit of a flash forward at the end. Not miles into the future, but to the point that you think, okay, like I think at least for these characters, this story is settled now.
Yeah.
And then some others like Dr. Fang, that I felt like I could see that kind of going really.
I think you're right. I think it's an interesting kind of world TKO have built, because world isn't the right word. It's an interesting dynamic TKO have, because there are often occasions where it feels like there could be more, but the presentation we see is that everything is going to be a one shot, or I don't know. It often feels like maybe there could be space for something more. Like I think books like Sentient, whilst they feel like nice one-off stories, also build such a rich world that it asks the question of, well, what would more involve? The same here, I think. I'm happy to see more from Redfork or the Redfork world. And my God, how old is that dog at the end? Sorry.
realise that the dog's still kicking about.
Yeah, I just realised that if Harper's in college at this point,
I mean, we're talking like 15 years, right? Something like that.
Yeah, so this dog is like
25.
Man. Yeah, this I've not thought about it, unless it's a different matching dog.
Just loves German Shepherds.
It's not the original Boone, it's a different Boone. Sorry, that was a tangent. But I am curious as to what TKO's bigger plan is. Are we going to see creators invited back to do a little bit more if the universe demands it? Or
I kind of like the idea that it's open for it. I think the best kind of story right now, that's not fair. Not the best kind of story writing, but the best way to leave it open for a sequel is to at least have a satisfying story that just offers the option.
Yeah, I think it's better to have the choice to do more, but it isn't needed than it is to leave something open for more, and in doing so not conclude what you've already told.
Yeah. I think actually, like, giving a full explanation of all of the bits and bobs of this comic would do it a disservice. Like, I'm okay with some of it being left to interpretation or to mystery. I just think a little bit more, as you say, maybe 2 issues more would have just filled in some of those blanks. But yeah, maybe, like you say, a prequel could be good, or a much more distant sequel.
Yeah, just something to answer a few questions that haven't really been addressed. And if that happens, that doesn't have to be in the same town. That doesn't have to even be the same characters. I think we've both covered on previous podcasts that we both quite like Alex Paknadel. And I think whatever he writes, we're probably going to check it out. So I'm quite eager to see where he would go with this world if he was going to tell another story. That hell, there could be monsters under every coal mine in town. I don't know.
Could be. I mean, I like that he's varied as well. Like, I think he's written so far several quite different stories. Yeah,
I agree. I think there's a world of difference between this and Friendo, or this and Arcadia I read recently, or this and Turncoat, this and I feel like we're just listing Alex Paknadel. No, that's who we've become. Not a bad thing though. He's a really good writer, and he's done a lot of things that have immediately appealed to me, and I think appealed to both of us. Equally, I think art-wise, Nil Vendrell, I would be very eager to see what else he's got in his future. As far as I can see, all of his work so far has been this and Shirtless Bear Fighter, which I haven't read, but I reckon I could be persuaded to.
If it's gonna look like this, then
yeah. So I'm pretty open to seeing what the creative team from this go on to, and
I think that's another good thing from TKO, though, is bringing these people to the fore.
Very much so. I think it's nice to see. It's interesting because there's obviously quite a good mix at TKO of creators who are quite established and creators who are still up and comers. And I think it's a place where very different creators who you don't often see together are coming together.
Yeah.
Which is nice. It's nice to see a wider variety of creators together.
Yeah.
Indie books are good.
Indie books be good.
Yeah. So that might be largely everything I have to say about Redfork. How about you?
I think it is for me. I'm looking forward to the other 2.
Yeah, we've got the other 2 coming up. I wonder what they're called.
The Pull by Steve Orlando, Ricardo Lopez Ortiz, and Triona Farrell.
And Lonesome Days, Savage Nights.
Indeed, by Steve Niles, Salvatore Simeone, and Simon Kudransky.
Nailed it.
I think so. I hope so.
And
apologies if I didn't.
If I'm right in my thinking, didn't Salvatore Simone also do Eve of Extinction?
Ooh, good question. You are correct.
Yeah. Which I did quite like from the previous wave of TKO books.
Yeah.
I know we're both fairly well read on TKO releases, so it would be nice to do some of these as bonus episodes to kind of fill in our TKO reviews. I think we've got a lot to talk about with them. So
absolutely.
Let's do that. So on that bombshell,
that total knockout.
I've been Zach, you've been Will. We'll continue to be, and we'll continue to be bigger than capes. And remember that comics are bigger than capes.